Hey guys, welcome back to Hands On channel. Today we're going to continue on in our series on our disappearing civil liberties here in America. And I came across this thing the other day that I found very fascinating. It was called the Communist Rules for Revolution. But we're going to change the title of that because it's really more like the Communist, Democrat, and Rhino Rules for Revolution. If you don't know what a rhino means or what that term means, R-I-N-O, it stands for Republican in name only. And I'm going to tell you what, guys, I believe those guys are some of the worst thing that we've got going against us right now, because they act like they're your friend one day and the next day they're stabbing you in the back whenever it counts. You know, on vote, when it's time to vote for them, of course, they're coming around to your house and they're Mr. Conservative. But then once they get the gig, they do things that their actions are not conservative at all. In fact, they're usually unconstitutional at very least, and bordering on the verge of traitorous or treacherous against the Constitution and against the country. So I want to read some of these rules here for you. And right up front, I'm going to tell you where this came from and stuff like that. But one of these fact checker websites called Snopes, which is also a satirical news website, they claim it's false. So I'm not denying whether or not this actually originated from the source that they claim originally. I don't know. I don't know where the hell it originated. It doesn't really matter. The point that I'm trying to make with this video is that these rules are real. And I don't know whether the communists wrote them or the Democrats wrote them or who the heck wrote them, but this is what has happened in the United States. So let's get into this, and I'm going to tell you where it came from, or where they say it came from. In May 1919 at Dusseldorf, Germany, the Allied forces discovered a copy of these rules. They were first printed in the United States in Bartlesville, Oklahoma, Examiner Enterprise, the same year, 1919. And according to this Snopes article, the actual Bartlesville, Oklahoma, the Examiner Enterprise actually did print these communist rules in 1919. The problem is no one can find that because, you know, obviously a paper from 1919, I don't know if they're still around or what, but they probably don't have that kind of stuff archived, you know, as good. It's a small town paper. It's not like, you know, a big New York Times or something like that. This is Bartlesville, Oklahoma. So they've probably long forgotten and long lost that information. But according to this initial report, this thing was first discovered in 1919 by the Allied forces in Dusseldorf, Germany. So almost 20 years later, in 1946, the Attorney General of Florida obtained them from a known member of the Communist Party, who acknowledged that the rules were then still a part of the communist program for the United States. So in 1946, this is documented. You can look this up. So whether or not it came out in 1919 or not and was circulating around and it was originated by the communists is irrelevant. What matters is, when we get into these rules, you'll see what I'm talking about here. Snopes, the leftist satirical news site / fact checker. And I mean, come on, does anyone else have a problem with that? They obviously have a political agenda. The people that run Snopes are clearly leftists. So I don't find it coincidental that many of these, like these rules here and many other things that Snopes fact checks are, go favorable to the Democrats and unfavorable to the Republicans. Let's just leave it that way. According to these lefties, the earliest known publication of the Commie Rules dates from February 1946, and it's significant to note that the publication coincided with events such as Winston Churchill's famous Iron Curtain speech, in which he issued a warning to citizens of the United States that communist parties constitute a growing challenge and a peril to Christian civilization. The timing suggests it's far more likely this was compiled by Americans in 1946 rather than Russians in 1919. And again, since they say this article is false, it implies that everything in the article is false. And that is false. That is a lie. So we're going to get into this. Number one of the communist / Democrat / Rhino rules: corrupt the young, get them away from religion, get them interested in sex, make them superficial, destroy their ruggedness. Now you tell me, look around you right now at what you see. You tell me. I'm going to give you some examples that I've pulled up here. A, science versus God. Well, that's pretty clear. The science people often run down anyone that's religious, and they say, what, your sky god is going to do this, or your sky god is going to do that. That's meant to belittle Christians. Don't kid yourself. They're not being friendly. They're not being open to different ideas. Their scientific minds are blinded to the fact that they believe, they worship science. That's the cold hard fact of it. A lot of these people that claim to be atheists and stuff like that, they have shifted their faith rather than putting it in something good and proven like Christianity or something like that. They have put it into science. So it's mutually exclusive in their opinion. If you're a Christian, you can't be a scientist. If you're a scientist, you can't be a Christian. And that's not by accident. Used to be back in the earlier days of America, the scientists were Christian most of them were Christian. So it wasn't a deal like that. This is a recent thing that happened in the last 30 to 40 years. Before this, you were able to be a Christian and a scientist without being discredited by the propaganda news stream. So if you're ever debating a liberal or a commie and they're trying to run your God down by calling it an imaginary sky god, you need to set them straight. Don't let that stand. B, sexualized youth. This was another example they listed here. Well, music, movies, commercials. Take a look around. What's that little... I'm trying not to name call. That girl, Katy Perry. Not Katy Perry. What's that girl's name? Billy Ray's daughter. I can't remember her name. She is... I don't know. The seed of Satan? I don't know what the best way to put that is. That girl is disturbed. I don't know what happened to her in her youth to make her act like this, or what kind of things Billy Ray taught her, but apparently it wasn't about Christianity and, being a modest person and not showing off your body. I seen one of her videos in passing one time where she's basically naked riding a ball back and forth. And you guys know she's done all manner of disgusting stuff, including making devil signs and all sorts of stuff just to piss off people that, are on the Christian side, and to make us go, oh my God, what is this? They get off on that. They get off on making us recoil and go, oh my God, what are you doing? They love that. When they get a rise out of us like that, that's one of the reasons they're doing this. The other reason is because they're trying to sexualize the youth. And they've done it, man. They have done it. C, destroy their ruggedness. How about this? Yeah, take a look at the metrosexual movement, or the lumber sexuals, or the SJW boys, or the Antifa cowards. Anybody that's got to hide behind a mask and throw bricks and rocks and bring clubs and stuff to supposedly a peaceful protest, that is not the spirit of America. They are the fascists. They are anti-liberty. They are anti-America. Do not put up with that, people. We're Americans. We don't have to put up with that crap. Black Lives Matter is another one. They were bullying people in the name of fake racism. Don't allow it. Don't allow that to stand anymore. This is beyond out of control, and we have allowed this to happen by going, oh, well, I don't want to be labeled a racist. I don't want to be labeled a misogynist or a homophobe. Well, guess what? They have basically taken your voice away through political correctness speech. Screw that. I'm drawing a line in the sand right now. Screw that. I'm going to argue. I'm going to say what I feel on my mind. And if you take that as racism, well, that's your problem, not mine. It ain't racism. It's Americanism. So, most of them are completely brainwashed panty wastes. These SJWs, it's disgusting. When I see the youth today, not all of them, not exclusively all of them. There are some great people in the millennial group or in these younger groups that are breaking out of these molds, and good for them. They're the true rebels. They're the ones that are breaking out of this system that is indoctrinating them to basically be useful idiots. And I think a lot of them are starting to realize that. So hopefully more and more are coming on. I can see in some of the analytics of the channel, I can see that our 18 to 25-year-old range group is starting to increase. So that gives me hope that maybe some younger people are starting to, take notice of this kind of stuff. And sometimes it takes a big event like COVID to do something like this, to make people, jerk them back into reality. Let's get on to number 2, or else this video is going to take all day. Number 2, get control of all means of publicity. And that means media, movies, music, you name it. If it's out there on the airwaves or on the internet or whatever, they're going to get control of it. YouTube is another great example. The lady that runs YouTube, do you think that she doesn't have a political agenda? She certainly does. And it's apparent on YouTube, because if you look at like a lot of the gun channels and stuff like that used to be really popular on YouTube, and these guys weren't out there telling people to do anything illegal or anything like that. I'm talking about the good guys like Such and like Hickok 45 and guys like that, Nut and Fancy, those guys. They weren't doing anything wrong, but yet YouTube came in and smacked them down. And they do it over and over and over because YouTube is run by commies. They hate the Second Amendment. They hate the Bill of Rights. They want to destroy it all. And they're going to use the First Amendment to do that and they'll use every one. They'll use every one that they can manipulate against us. And that's another one of the communist rules, but I don't believe it shows up in this list here. So, number 2, get control of all means of publicity. Fact, the lefty commies own the media. Period. Yeah, forget about Fox News. They're half left anyways. Check into Operation Mockingbird if you want to know what's going on there and how they did this. Number 3 of the communist rules, get people's minds off their government by focusing their attention on athletics, sexy books, and other trivialities. So things that don't mean anything. The Romans were the first ones I ever heard of that came up with this. They provided their subjects with something they called bread and circus. The theory being, if you keep people fed and entertained, they would conform to Caesar's will, or whatever governor, whatever leader they had or whatever. They would conform to that ruler and their will, as long as they're comfortable, as long as they're entertained and fed. People will not revolt if they're drunk on comfort, as they wouldn't want to jeopardize that comfort. I mean, come on, guys, think about it. And I'm not just talking to the left and to the communist either. We're all drunk on comfort, every single one of us. We go to the wall, we flip a switch, our air conditioner comes on if we get a little uncomfortable or we get a little too cold, we go and flip a switch, we turn the heat on, we go get in our cars and we drive wherever the heck we want, we turn the key, and if it stops working, we don't work on it anymore, most of us. We just go out and buy a new car. And, it's just this disposable system of constant consumerism that we've let ourselves fall into, rather than, taking responsibility and, growing your own food, cutting your own wood for your own heat, that sort of stuff. That's dying off, man. It's because of laziness. People don't want to do that kind of stuff. It's too easy just to go over and flip that switch. The problem is they don't realize with that ease, with that simplicity that comes from all of these conveniences, they've actually sacrificed liberties. It's hard to see that, but you really do. The more you rely on any system, the less self-reliant you are. So remember that. The real question is, who do you know that loves liberty as much as football or baseball or basketball or whatever their sport is, soccer? Who do you know that knows their rights these days? Who knows the stats of every player on the team? I worked with guys that couldn't tell you over and over and over at different places I've worked at, and I've been supervisor, I've just been a regular, mechanic out in the shop. And those guys, I would question them on different things, and they didn't have any idea what the Bill of Rights was. They had heard of it, back in grade school or whatever, but they didn't know what their actual rights were. And that is a problem. That is a shame. You have to know your rights, or else they're easily taken away. So they knew all the sports stats though. Oh man, they could tell you every single, whatever. They could tell you how fast the guy ran a 40 and 440, whatever the hell it is. I don't know, because I don't watch sports, man. I don't have time, or I don't want to put that kind of stuff into my mind, because it distracts me from what's important. Exactly like these communists said in their rule. So remember that. I'm not saying sports is all bad, but remember that. You need to ask yourself, am I a freaking sports addict? Is that all I care about? Is that all I want to do is come home and watch ESPN and watch football and watch baseball and basketball, every sport that they'll throw at me? If that's the case, it's probably your mind seeking knowledge, although you're seeking the wrong knowledge. Number 4, divide the people into hostile groups by constantly harping on controversial matters of no importance. So, we've got issues like, what bathroom will the LGBTQRSTUV use this week? Or what letters are we supposed to call them so that they don't feel offended? Which commie football player is going to take a knee this week at the game? Can you say Trump-Russia collusion, global warming, gun control, Me Too movement? All of those are examples of distractions that are of little importance. And you might say, well, the Me Too movement, come on, man, that was really important. Well, if it was really important, wouldn't those same standards apply to Joe Biden that applied to Donald Trump when he made the statement about, grabbing a lady by her genitalia? Wouldn't actually grabbing someone by their genitalia, like Joe Biden is accused of doing, wouldn't that constitute a Me Too movement action? I thought all ladies were supposed to be, believed no matter what. So why is this lady not believed? Oh, because he's one of yours, because he's a commie. Okay, number 5, destroy the people's faith in their natural leaders by holding the latter up to contempt, ridicule, and vilification. So, by the way, this is only generally used against Caucasian Republicans and the Founding Fathers, never used against the left. Never. So that right there tells you where the communists lie. It doesn't mean all the left is communist, but that's where they find a home, on the left. They have a different set of rules, see? They don't have to follow the same rules that everybody else has to follow because they're the elitists, they're the leftists, they're the communists. They can do whatever they want. Their hypocrisy knows no bounds. Number 6, always preach true democracy, but seize power as fast and as ruthlessly as possible. The Dems have been saying America is a democracy for 50 plus years. The USA is a republic, not a democracy. Don't ever forget that. There's a very big difference. The Founding Fathers were dead set against pure democracy. And that's why they structured the system this way. Mob rule is dangerous. You don't want mob rule. Many Democrats admit they want socialism now in the USA. Like Bernie Sanders, Hillary Clinton, she hadn't come right out and said it, I don't think, but all the stuff that she believes in it points to socialism. So all of their elitists, AOC, all of these people like that, Nancy Pelosi, they want socialism. It's clear. And that's anti-American. The way we were founded, we are not a socialist country, and it does not fit in the United States. So that socialism is anti-American. If you don't like that I'm saying that, you need to get with your, run for office or whatever you got to do, and you need to go amend the Constitution to allow socialism in. I think you'd be run out of the country if you tried. Of course, I don't know now. Maybe not. With all the brainwashed, useful idiots out there, maybe you wouldn't be. I don't know. We're kind of at a crossroads right now in our country. They seize power by endless asinine regulations, voluminous bills that no one bothers to read. And arguably, you wouldn't have time to read the damn things, man. They're 3,000-page healthcare bill. Come on. How many pages was this last stimulus bill? It was like at least 1,200, 1,500 pages, something like. I don't know. I may be wrong about that. But the point is almost all of these bills they put out are so freaking big. It'd be like reading an entire book or two just to get to understand. And it's all written in legalese. So guess what's going to happen? As soon as you read the first 3 or 4 paragraphs, you're going to be snoozing. Because unless you're a lawyer, you don't understand legalese. And it's very, very dull. And I think that's part of it too. They do that to keep you from reading it. They don't want you to know what the law says. That way everybody's guilty of something. So they seize power by endless asinine regulations, voluminous bills that no one even bothers to read, and bureaucratic red tape that's so frickin' thick you'd never get to the bottom of it. Number 7, by encouraging government extravagance, destroy its credit and produce fear of inflation with rising prices and general discontent. Anybody taking a look at the national debt clock lately? Just shy of 25 trillion when I made this video. I mean, it was just under 25 trillion. It's about to roll over. Probably is by now. Unfunded liability or total debt is 77 trillion. China is buying our debt, our factories, our land, our machines at an alarming rate. Check out all the extravagant items in the COVID stimulus package. I mean, you know, I don't know all the details, but the House and the Senate, they gave themselves a real fancy, like $200,000 per child daycare thing, so that their kids are taken care of. Well, did they give your kids 200 grand a piece? No. Only the elitists get that. So that right there is some of the problem in this country. These people, they make a bill, and then to get the bill passed, Nancy Pelosi and her whatever group of commies, they have to put all of their stuff in there to break it down. And then the Republicans and Trump feel like if they don't sign the damn thing, then the American people are going to run them off and be like, oh, well, you didn't do enough to help us, blah, blah, blah. And that's exactly what the mainstream media is going to echo no matter what happens. So it's a lose-lose situation, guys. This ain't no joke, man. They have infiltrated our country. Almost every institution and organization has been overthrown and basically is being shadow run by these people. So that's why things are going down the toilet drain like they are. We're not living as designed by the Constitution. We're not living the way the founders intended us to live. Okay, number 8, foment unnecessary strikes in vital industries. Encourage civil disorder. Foster lenient and soft attitudes on the part of government towards such disorders. Oil is the best example that comes to mind right now. For years, the left has attacked fossil fuel as a primary contributor to global warming, claiming it's stealing Greta's childhood, and AOC says the world will end in 10 years. Of course, Al Gore said some stuff about the world ending in 2014. That never happened. And people back in the 70s said we were going to be in an ice age by the time we got into the 90s. That never happened. So I'm starting to think these scientists don't know their ass from a hole in the ground. It's a political agenda they're trying to push. And while we're on this, one of my buddies told me years ago, he had a statistics class in college, and he told me that, statistics basically can be manipulated into anything that you want them to be. If you put the right data in there, you can prove anything you want to prove. No matter how crazy it sounds, you can prove it by using statistics if you know how to manipulate them. The left, the mainstream media, even the rhinos, even some of the Republicans know how to manipulate. And these statistics are used against us all the time to direct us to a certain line of thinking. So just keep that in mind when you start hearing them rattling off different statistics. They too often march or bus their useful idiots to state capitals around the nation to appear more powerful than they really are. These paid protesters are anything but grassroots, but the mainstream media always paints them as this, just spontaneous grassroots movement that just came out of nowhere, when really, if you trace it down, it goes back to George Soros's money paid them to go there. These are paid protesters oftentimes. Number 9, by specious argument, cause the breakdown of the old moral virtues: honesty, sobriety, continence, faith in the pledged word, ruggedness. So, here's some other examples of this. A, science over God, earth over man, animal over man, alternative energy over traditional proven sources of energy. B, lies. Bill Clinton lied under oath. Hillary Clinton lied about the server. Barack Obama lied about Obamacare and Fast and Furious. George W. Bush lied about the reason we had to go into Iraq. You see here what I'm trying to do? This is not a left or right issue necessarily, although I happen to believe that the traditional viewpoint of the American founding fathers would have been more on the right than it is on the left. It doesn't change the fact that these people, they're sociopaths. Epstein did not kill himself. C, drug abuse and alcohol abuse are destroying the minds of the government. Hint, we the people are the government. 10. Cause the registration of all firearms on some pretext with a view to confiscating them and leaving the populace helpless. Every single time a gun is used by a kid jacked up on psychotropic drugs, the left blames the inanimate object rather than the trigger puller. And even this, man, this has been bugging me. I don't know if anyone else noticed this when this happened, but I don't know, 3 to 5 years ago, I heard this new term come out, and the left came up with it, I'm certain. I can't find the origin of it, but I'm sure they came up with it, and they found a word. They ran it through one of their test groups. You know, they brought a group of people in, and they said, "Hey, how does this word sound to you?" And the word is gun violence. Well, let me tell you something. That's an oxymoron. A gun is incapable of violence. Period. A gun cannot be violent. Only people can be violent. Okay. It's always used as an excuse to ban some type of perceived scary gun or limit magazine capacity. Better known as clips to the liberals. So just in case you're on that side, what we're talking about here, according to the liberals, is clips. They call semi-auto firearms full auto every time. And I think it's done on purpose. This is not their ignorance. They'll often say, "Oh, he had an AR-15 full auto." And I don't know anybody that owns an AR-15 full auto. Yes, legally you are allowed to get them, but they are very rare. And you have to pay a tax stamp, basically, and sign up with the ATF or whoever it would be to get a license to have a fully automatic weapon of any kind. So these liberals are acting like, you know, they're trying to lie to their useful idiots and make them think that you can just go to any store and it's super easy and you can just buy a fully automatic AR-15 or AK-47 and just take it home that day. That is complete BS. It's a complete lie. There are ways to do that and attain that legally, but you would have to go through. Most people don't have that. I mean, the vast majority of people don't have access to that tax stamp thing so that you can have a full auto. So completely ridiculous, completely ludicrous. It's just another way of them making something that's an inanimate object sound scary. You know, they call semi-auto firearms full auto all the time. They call ARs and AKs assault rifles because that sounds scarier than a sporting rifle. You think about that, and the most important thing about all the way the left does stuff is they love to change the meaning of words. So just pay attention to what they say, and pretty soon you'll start to hear these code words as they're speaking, and you'll be like, yep, there it is. There's a fear word. Oh yeah, there's a word to evoke an emotion. At what point did we become people that weren't capable of just processing the facts? Why can't they just come on and say, here's the facts, this is what happened today, instead of putting their political bias on that? That is not a free press. That is a dominated by the left press. So, as you can see, it's the liberals that have implemented these communist goals for America. Moral of the story, Joseph McCarthy was right, 100% right. He should have done a lot more. And if you look back in history, you'll see the groups of people that were the most adamantly against Joseph McCarthy turned out to be the communists in most cases. You know, now the commies call themselves liberal progressives or Democrats. Republicans aren't exempt either. Rhinos are the worst, as I said earlier, because they are basically a wolf in sheep's clothing. So, guys, the reason that I did this video here today is because I don't think many people today realize what real communism really is. And yes, Snopes debunked this thing and says it's false, but none of this information is false. What they were saying was false was the date that this thing was published, or the source or the origin of the publicator. You know, it doesn't really matter, as I said earlier. What matters is these are real things. These are real rules. If you don't believe me, there's another confirmed case, or a confirmed set of communist rules. It's called the 45 rules, the 45 communist rules for America. I highly suggest you look them up. I was actually going to try to do a video on those, but I don't think a lot of people will be willing to sit there while I go through the whole 45 rules. Basically, there's only a few of those rules that they haven't accomplished. So if you're interested in learning more about this, and I suggest you do, go check out the 45 rules the communists have for America. But guys, this is important stuff. You know, they have attacked us on every level. They're attacking us daily on every level, it's a multifaceted attack. This is not just one direction. They are going multi directions at us all the time. They're attacking Christianity. They're attacking the founding fathers. They're attacking the youth, our children. The time to stand up for liberty is actually past, but it's not too late. Stand for liberty today, please. The founding fathers knew their stuff. Were they perfect men? No, they weren't. They had problems. But you don't have to, throw the baby out with the bathwater just because Jefferson owned slaves. I wasn't in the slave culture, but, neither were you. Neither were those people that are holding a grudge against something that we didn't have anything to do with. You and I are not guilty of the sins of our fathers. But we have been charged with the duty to uphold and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, both foreign and domestic. Guys, I appreciate you tuning into the Hands On channel. Make sure you're stocked up on supplies. Make sure you got plenty of food. Please hit me up in the comments. Let's continue this discussion. Let's get this video out there so that more people, especially the young people, will understand communism. I've got a pretty good older audience that follows my channel, and I don't worry about those people. I know they already know this stuff I'm talking about. And I've had a few smart-ass commenters come in there and say, oh, well, you're like 2 weeks behind on this. Why didn't you say this 2 weeks ago? Whatever. You know what? Better late than never, right? I'm not the news. I'm not some, Walter Cronkite or something, riding around in a limo or something that has a whole staff of people making this stuff up for me. I have to do the research myself and take the time out of my day to do this stuff for you. And I hope you enjoy it. I'm not doing it to scare anybody. I'm doing it so that you'll wake up before it's too late. Peace through superior firepower.